Emma stood outside her house, waiting for an Uber driver that was never coming. She had just received a call from her sister that morning. Her mother had suffered a stroke and was on life support. Just then, a sleek black convertible pulled up with a well-dressed man behind the wheel. She did not hesitate. She jumped in, assuming he was her ride. He was not. But he said yes anyway. And that one act of kindness became the start of the love she never expected. The phone call came at 6:47 in the morning, and Emma was left speechless. She had been awake for only 10 minutes when her phone buzzed. It was her younger sister, Rachel, and she was sobbing. "Mom's in the hospital. She had a stroke, Emma. They said it's bad. You need to come now." Her heart stopped. Her mother, who had just turned 62, who still went on morning walks and texted her about dinner plans. A stroke? She threw off the covers and stumbled out of bed. She needed to get to Memorial Hospital now, but then she remembered her car was still in the repair shop. It had broken down 2 days ago. Uber. She would call an Uber. Her hands shook as she grabbed her phone and opened the app. She did not even think about what she was wearing. The blue cocktail dress from last night's charity gala was draped over her chair, and she pulled it on quickly. There was no time to change. The app loaded, and she entered the hospital address. A driver named David accepted the ride. 2 minutes away, the screen said. She ran downstairs, grabbed her purse, and rushed outside. The morning air was cool and damp. She stood on the sidewalk, staring down the street, phone pressed to her ear as Rachel gave her more updates. None of them good. Her mother was on life support. Emma checked the app. Still 2 minutes away. Then 5 minutes. Then the notification appeared. Your driver had to cancel, finding you a new ride. No. She wanted to scream. She needed to be there. 3 houses down, James Mitchell pulled out of his driveway in his black convertible. He had an early meeting at Memorial Hospital, where he worked as head of neurology. The morning was cool but clear enough to drive with the top down. As he drove down the street, he noticed a woman standing on the sidewalk. She was pacing frantically, crying, her phone pressed to her ear. He recognized her vaguely from the neighborhood, though they had never spoken. And then she looked up. Her eyes locked onto his car, and before he could process what was happening, she was running toward him. Emma saw the sleek black convertible and the man in the sharp suit behind the wheel. Her brain made an instant connection. Her ride. She ran to the passenger side and yanked open the door. "Thank God," she said, her voice cracking. "Are you David? I need to get to Memorial Hospital. It's an emergency. My mom had a stroke. Please." James looked at her, startled. He saw her tear-streaked face, her trembling hands, the raw desperation in her voice. Memorial Hospital was exactly where he was heading. "I am not David," he said gently, "but I can see you are in distress." "Memorial Hospital? Get in. I will give you a lift anyway." Emma blinked, confused. Not David? But there was no time to think. She climbed in, still clutching her phone. "Thank you. Thank you so much." James pulled away from the curb and drove smoothly toward the hospital. Emma's phone rang constantly. Her sister, her brother, more updates, more fear. Between calls, she glanced at the man driving. He was calm, focused, quiet. He did not ask questions or make small talk. He just drove. She felt a pang of guilt. She had assumed he was her Uber driver. She had not even looked at him properly, had not asked his name. She just saw the car, saw him in that suit, and made an assumption. And he had said yes anyway. "I am so sorry," she said suddenly. "I thought you were someone else. I did not mean to, thank you. Really." "Do not worry about it," James said quietly. "Just focus on getting to your mother. That is what is important right now." His voice was kind, reassuring. Emma nodded, wiping at her eyes. The hospital was only 12 minutes away, but it felt like forever. James drove a little faster, taking the quickest route. He knew these streets well. Finally, the hospital came into view. James pulled up to the emergency entrance. Emma fumbled with her phone. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing," James said firmly. "Go to your mother. That is what matters." Emma looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He had kind eyes, a calm presence. She wanted to ask his name, to thank him properly, but there was no time. She nodded, grabbed her purse, and ran through the automatic doors. James watched her disappear inside, then drove to the staff parking lot. He hoped her mother would be okay. He parked and walked toward the entrance, briefcase in hand. He had a long day ahead, a board meeting, surgeries, patients who needed his care. But as he walked through those same doors, he found himself thinking about the woman in the blue dress. He wondered if their paths would cross again. Emma burst through the ICU waiting room doors and saw her family. Her sister Rachel jumped up, face red from crying. Her brother Michael stood by the window. Their father sat with his head in his hands. Rachel grabbed Emma in a tight embrace. "Where have you been?" "My car broke down. I had to get an Uber. How is she?" "She is stable for now," Michael said. "On machines. The doctor will talk to us soon." Emma sank into a chair, exhausted. They waited for what felt like hours. Finally, at 9:15, a nurse approached. "The neurologist will be out shortly." Emma stood, her heart pounding. The ICU door opened, and a doctor walked out in a white coat, tablet in hand. And then Emma's world tilted. It was him, the man from the car. Her jaw dropped. She felt the blood drain from her face. James walked toward the family. When his eyes landed on Emma, there was a flicker of recognition. But his expression remained professional. "Good morning. I am Dr. James Mitchell, head of neurology. I have been overseeing your mother's care since she arrived." Emma could not breathe. "Doctor." He was not an Uber driver, he was her mother's doctor. "Your mother suffered a severe stroke," James continued. "We have stabilized her, but the damage is significant. The next 48 hours will be critical." Rachel grabbed Emma's hand. Michael asked questions about treatment and recovery. James answered with patience and clarity, explaining everything thoroughly. But Emma barely heard any of it. She had assumed he was her Uber driver. She had demanded he take her to the hospital, and he had done it without hesitation. The shame hit her hard. "Can we see her?" Rachel asked. "Yes. 2 at a time, only for a few minutes." James glanced at Emma again. Their eyes met briefly. Then he turned back to the family. "I will check on her regularly. If you have questions, ask the nurses to page me." He walked back through the ICU doors, leaving Emma standing there, her mind spinning. Emma and Rachel went in first. Their mother looked so small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires everywhere. Emma held her hand, whispering words she hoped her mother could hear. The hours blurred. They rotated visits, 2 at a time. The rest of the time, they sat in the waiting room, drinking bad coffee and trying not to fall apart. Emma could not stop thinking about James, about the assumptions she had made, about his kindness despite it. She asked a nurse about him. "Dr. Mitchell, one of the best we have, really cares about his patients." Emma wanted to apologize, but every time she saw him, he was with other patients or families. The timing never felt right. By evening, most family had left. Emma refused to go. She sat alone in the waiting room, head against the wall, completely exhausted. At 11 p.m., James appeared with 2 cups of coffee. He sat beside her and handed her one. "Decaf," he said quietly. "You need to sleep eventually." Emma took it gratefully. They sat in silence for a moment. "You have been here 16 hours, James said. "I cannot leave her." "I understand." The silence stretched between them, comfortable somehow. "Dr. Mitchell," Emma said finally, "I need to apologize. This morning, I just assumed you were my Uber driver. I did not even really look at you. I just saw you and assumed, and I am so ashamed." James shook his head gently. "Emma, you were in crisis. You needed help. That is all that mattered. But I should have—" "You assumed someone was there to help you," James said quietly. "And I was. That is it." "Why did you help me?" Emma asked, her voice breaking. James was quiet for a moment. "My father died of a brain aneurysm when I was in medical school. Sudden. My mother was across the country. By the time she got to the hospital, he was gone. She never forgave herself for not being there." He looked at Emma. "When I saw you this morning, I knew what you were facing. If I could get you here even 5 minutes sooner, it might matter. So I did." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Your mother is lucky to have you," James continued softly. "And whatever happens, you are here. That means everything." They talked for 2 hours. About loss, about his father and why he became a neurologist. About her mother and all the things Emma wished she had said. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they had known each other for years instead of hours. Emma found herself noticing things about him. The way his eyes softened when he talked about his father. The way he listened, really listened, without trying to fix everything. The quiet strength in his presence. At 1 a.m., alarms suddenly blared from the ICU. James was up instantly, already running. Emma's heart stopped. She watched through the window as he and nurses rushed into her mother's room. 45 minutes passed. Emma stood frozen, watching, praying. Finally, the alarms stopped. James emerged, his expression serious. "We stabilized her," he said quietly. "But Emma, the next 48 hours are critical. Her body is struggling." Emma nodded, tears falling. James placed a hand on her shoulder briefly, a gesture of comfort. "I will be here," he said. "I promise." Then he went back inside, and Emma realized something had shifted. This was not just a doctor caring for a patient's family. This felt like something more. She sank into her chair, exhausted and afraid, but somehow comforted by the knowledge that James was there, that he cared, that she was not facing this alone. The next 2 days were the longest of Emma's life. She barely left the hospital. Rachel brought her clean clothes. Michael brought food she could not eat. Their father sat quietly, holding their mother's hand whenever he was allowed in the room. James checked on her mother every few hours, his presence steady and reassuring. Each time he emerged from the ICU, Emma searched his face for clues, for hope. Sometimes he offered a small, encouraging nod. Other times, his expression was unreadable. On the third evening, Emma sat alone in the waiting room. Most of her family had gone home to rest. She stared at the floor, too tired to cry anymore. James appeared in the doorway, still in his white coat. He did not say anything at first, just sat down beside her. Emma looked up at him and knew. She just knew. "I am so sorry," James said softly. "We did everything we could. Her body just could not recover from the damage." Emma nodded slowly, the words washing over her like cold water. She had known this was coming. They all had. But knowing did not make it hurt any less. "Can I see her?" "Of course." James walked with her to the room. Her mother looked peaceful, the machines finally silent. Emma sat beside the bed and held her hand one last time, whispering goodbye to the woman who had raised her, loved her, shaped her into who she was. The funeral was 4 days later. A simple service, the way her mother would have wanted. Friends and family gathered, sharing stories and tears. Emma stood at the front, trying to find words that felt big enough to honor her mother's life, but everything she said felt small and inadequate. After it was over, after everyone had left, Emma went home to an empty, quiet house. She felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside her and left only the shell. The days blurred together. She took time off work. She barely answered her phone. She sat in her mother's favorite chair and stared at old photo albums, trying to hold on to memories that already felt like they were slipping away. 1 week after the funeral, her doorbell rang. Emma almost did not answer it. She was not ready to face anyone, to pretend she was okay. But something made her get up and walk to the door. James stood on her porch, dressed in jeans and a sweater. No white coat, no doctor persona, just him. "I hope I am not intruding," he said quietly. "I wanted to check on you. As your neighbor, not your mother's doctor." Emma felt something crack open inside her chest. She had not realized how much she needed this, needed him. "Actually," she said, her voice hoarse from disuse, "would you want to take a drive? I have been inside for days." "I would like that." They walked to his car in comfortable silence. James opened the passenger door for her, and she slid into the same red leather seat she had sat in that terrible morning. But this time, there was no panic, no rush, just quiet. James drove through the suburbs with no particular destination. The evening air was cool, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Emma leaned back in her seat and let the wind wash over her face. They did not talk much at first. They did not need to. Sometimes silence is its own kind of comfort. After a while, Emma began to speak. She told him about her mother. Not about the stroke or the hospital, but about who she really was. The way she laughed at her own jokes. The way she always burned the edges of cookies but refused to admit it. The way she volunteered at the library every Tuesday for 20 years because she believed every child deserved access to books. James listened. Really listened. He did not offer empty platitudes or try to fix her grief. He just drove and listened, and let her words fill the space between them. "Your mother sounds like she was an amazing woman," James said when Emma finally fell quiet. "She was." Emma wiped at her eyes. "And you gave me 3 more days with her. Your team, your skill, you gave us that gift." James shook his head gently. "Your mother was a fighter. I am just sorry I could not give you more time." "Those 3 days mattered," Emma said firmly. Every single moment mattered. They drove for another hour, winding through neighborhoods and past parks Emma had known her whole life. Eventually, James turned back toward their street. He pulled up in front of Emma's house and turned off the engine. Neither of them moved to get out. They just sat there, leaning against the car, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon and the streetlights began to flicker on. Emma finally addressed the thing that had been sitting between them since that first morning. "That day, when I saw you in your car, I saw what I expected to see. I did not see you. And now?" James asked quietly. "Now I see someone extraordinary," Emma said, turning to look at him. "Someone kind who helps strangers, someone brilliant who fights for his patients, someone who showed up for me when he did not have to, over and over again." She paused, her voice catching slightly. "I see you, James." James reached out and gently took her hand. His touch was warm, steady, grounding. "I am glad I pulled up that morning," he said softly. "Not how I imagined meeting my neighbor, but I would not change it." Emma laughed. A real laugh. The first one in weeks. Best wrong assumption I ever made. They stood there as the last light faded from the sky. Two people who had found each other in the worst of circumstances and somehow created something beautiful from the wreckage. "I would like to take you to dinner," James said after a while. "A proper one, when you are ready." Emma smiled, feeling something warm bloom in her chest. Something that felt almost like hope. "I would like that. But maybe we start with coffee? Tomorrow morning?" "Tomorrow morning," James agreed, his smile matching hers. They stood by the car for another hour, talking about everything and nothing, about their childhoods and their dreams, about loss and healing, about the strange way life brings people together when you least expect it. When Emma finally went inside, she did not feel quite so hollow anymore. The grief was still there, heavy and real. But there was something else too, something lighter, the possibility of connection, the promise of tomorrow. The next morning, Emma woke early. She showered, put on clean clothes, and actually looked at herself in the mirror for the first time in days. She looked tired, her eyes still sad, but there was something different there too, a spark of something that might eventually become joy again. At 8 a.m., she looked out her front window and saw James walking up her driveway. He carried 2 coffee cups and wore that same gentle smile she had come to recognize. Emma opened the door before he could knock. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," James replied, handing her a cup. They sat on her front porch, sipping coffee and watching the neighborhood wake up. A jogger passed by. A dog barked in the distance. Life continued, as it always does, even after loss. "So," Emma said after a while, "tell me about you, the real you. Not Dr. Mitchell, just James." And so he did. He told her about growing up in Chicago, about his love for old jazz music and terrible action movies, about how he had always wanted to help people but never imagined how hard it would be to lose patience despite his best efforts. Emma shared too, about her work with literacy programs, about her dream of opening a community center one day, about how she had always been so busy with life that she never really noticed the people right in front of her. "Like neighbors 3 houses down," James said with a slight smile. "Exactly like that," Emma laughed. They finished their coffee and sat in comfortable silence, watching the world go by. Emma looked at James, really looked at him. At the kindness in his eyes, at the quiet strength in the way he carried himself, at the man who had shown her grace when she needed it most. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. For that morning, for the hospital, for being here now." James reached over and gently squeezed her hand. "Thank you for letting me in." They sat together on that porch as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky. Two people who had started as strangers, connected through tragedy, and found something neither of them expected. Love does not always arrive with fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes it comes quietly, in a moment of crisis, in an act of unexpected kindness, in the gentle understanding between two people who have both known loss. Emma did not know what the future held. She was still grieving, still healing. But as she sat there with James, their hands intertwined, she felt something she had not felt in weeks: hope. And that, she realized, was more than enough for now.